guys, Rai here. We've been wanting to go to Japan for a few years now, especially since my husband's brother and his family live out there. But COVID has pushed those plans back a few times. We were finally able to make the trip this spring, and when I was looking at airlines, I found a new airline that flew out of LAX called Zipair. Their prices were half the price of any other airline I could find, so we decided to take the plunge and give their first class a try. So we had an overnight layover at the LAX airport, and in the morning we grabbed some Starbucks. I always like to have a vanilla bean frappuccino, and I got a croissant. The airport got really packed at our terminal. It was not a smooth boarding process. As you can see, everyone just kind of lined up at those gates, and it was chaos trying to get on board. They didn't board in zones or groups or anything, so that was definitely a bit of a bummer at this location. My first impressions of the lay flat area was how big it was. On Zipair, they don't call it first class, they just call it full flat beds. The area was pretty big and spacious. Everyone had their own bins for their own items. It was really nice. There was multiple places to put all your stuff, which is really nice for such a long flight when you have so much room to spread out. They had a little shelf in front of you and then a little shelf to the side. There was a full shelf next to your arm, and then there was a pop-up shelf on your arm that faced the aisle so that you could really get cozy in your area. The bed's fully reclined with a little cubby for your feet to go into so you could truly lay flat, which is probably kind of obvious from the name, but was honestly so nice to be able to get some sleep on this flight. We did pay for meals on this flight. It was a little bit of a bummer that you couldn't choose what time they served it to you because we wanted to sleep as soon as we got on the plane, and so I would have preferred to be able to push it to the end of the flight, not in the first hour. But this cheesy spinach pasta was really good, and then my husband had this really basic chicken and rice meal that he said he had no complaints about. I really liked the windows on this plane because you could control how dark or dim they got, which was really nice to block the sunlight since this flight took off in the middle of the morning LA time, but it was in the middle of the night for Tokyo time, and we wanted to adjust to Tokyo time as soon as possible. And since I'm so sensitive to light, it was nice that even though I had a thin eye mask, I was also able to dim the lights in the window. So as soon as I ate that meal and made the windows dark, I went straight to sleep. It was such a good thing that we stayed up all night at LAX because I ended up being super tired even though it was 11 a.m. LA time, so I got plenty of rest. But as you'll see here, they also dimmed the lights on the plane for everybody eventually in the flight. I don't know how soon into the flight they did, but I got really good rest with just an eye mask and blocking out the window light. I've never flown over the middle of the ocean before. I've always flown within the continental US and then a little bit along the coast in some areas. So it was really, really cool for me to see and experience the ocean from above like this. I love the ocean, and these clouds looked so cool to me just in their little chunks floating above the sea. We did want to be awake for the second half of the flight, just so that we could be on Tokyo time for sure, since we would be landing around 2:30 in the afternoon Tokyo time. So I tried to wake up around 8 a.m. Tokyo time on the flight, which meant there was a lot of time that needed to be filled. So we brought a lot of stuff to make sure we had things with us. We brought our Nintendo Switch, I brought my Kindle, we had some games on our phone and tablet, as well as some shows we had downloaded beforehand. And then I did rest my eyes a little bit at one point, but not too much. Coming into Tokyo was very cool. One minute we were above the water, and then we were surrounded by clouds, and when we came out of it, we were right above the island. It was really cool. It was really fun to see the island from above, to see how much plant life there still is on the island and how much they have utilized towns to be vertical instead of horizontal, which is very different from the US where everything spreads out really far on the land, so there's not necessarily a lot of land left that's just beautiful. The turbulence on this descent was awful. There was quite a bit of bumpiness to it as we came in to the island. Those clouds were providing a lot of crosswinds, it seemed like, and it got pretty jolty, but overall it was a good landing. We did stop for a bathroom break, which ended up making it so we waited in line for about an hour at customs, which was definitely a mistake, but we eventually made it through. And then there was this really fun escalator greeting us on our way down into the general area of the airport. The Narita airport was so much nicer than LAX. It looked so much cleaner and was so much prettier in general. We didn't have to wait as long, which was obviously a plus as well, since we just took the train to the airport that day. It was also really easy to get through security and through the small customs to be able to get into the international terminal. Here's a closer look at the seats for you guys. There's plenty of room to spread out. Here's a look at the bed lying flat, and then the headrest is also adjustable both up and down and has two side wings to help hold your head in place to make sure you can be super comfortable. It was really beautiful scenery around the airport. And the takeoff was pretty smooth, but this flight overall had a lot of turbulence. We got the pork cutlet for our meal. It was tasty, it was basic, it got the job done. The bathrooms on this flight were really nice and spacious. We ended up needing to sleep through most of this flight to adjust back to US time zones, so I don't really have much footage. Since this is a budget airline, you end up having to pay for anything you want on the flight. So you have to pay for any meal you want, any beverage you want, if you want a blanket or headphones or slippers or anything. They have an in-flight menu, but it's better to come prepared. I got this snack at the 7-Eleven in the airport before we left, just so that I would have enough food on the flight. These mountains look super cool. And just like that, we're back. Thanks so much for watching. Keep an eye out in the coming weeks for videos about the trip itself. And if you're flying to Japan, I recommend giving Zipair a try.